Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very happy to welcome Mike Oppenheim here. And he is a writer, a podcaster, conversationalist, musician, philosopher, book indexer, and father. I had to write all that down to get it. So, but tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I'm 42 years old. I currently live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm from the Bay Area of California, but I've lived all over the country. I've lived in 9 or 10 states now, and I've even lived in other countries. So I just love traveling. I love meeting people. And then through all that, I just have a lot of experiences. So writing is a very natural occupation for me. And yeah, I mean, I think you summarized me pretty well. I would just say that the next time I'm on a podcast in like 2 more years from now, I'll probably even have another title with me because I just like to do a lot of things. So I don't like to get into a rut, and that includes career and everything like that. So
now you're a musician, and I read that you had played for a couple of bands.
Yeah, I mean, let's see, nothing like that's internet famous or anything, but in the early 2000s, I started a rock band with 2 really close friends and another friend. And we did like the New York State kind of scene. So our last show ever was in New York City, but we weren't like regularly playing in the city. We were more like up on the Rust Belt and stuff. So we did a lot of like traveling and stuff. And then I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I was in a couple bands there, but it was really interesting. The one that was the most successful, I never saw this coming, but I was friends with an older person. So at the time I was in my like mid 20s and he was late 40s going on 50. And he wanted to start a cover rock band for surf rock, which like was not popular at the time. So we started playing all these like original 60s, 70s surf songs, and it blew up. It was like crazy. So my greatest like live performance experience ever was playing in a cover rock band as a lead guitarist, and it was actually like phenomenally fun. So and then I was hit by a car and I was in a wheelchair briefly, and that kind of like just ended my music career, not because like I couldn't ever play again, but I actually kind of wanted out and I used it as an excuse. So I still write music, I still play music, but I don't perform anymore.
Well, tell me about your podcast.
Yeah, my podcast is called Coffin Talk, and it started. My wife and I started it, actually. I'm the host of it. She's not on it, but she produces it and does a lot of the booking and stuff. And my brother actually is also on the team now. But it's about talking about the meaning of death instead of the meaning of life. So how does death have meaning to each individual people? And so we've interviewed atheists, Satan worshipers, devout Catholics. We don't care. We are any person who's qualified to speak intelligently into a microphone is welcome on our show. And the goal is just kind of to let people see that like everyone's got opinions, but no one has the actual answer. Like none of us know what's going to happen when you die. So that's why it's a fun podcast for that reason. And then the impetus for it was actually because I was volunteering in hospice for a couple of years, and I noticed that people at the end of their life in America specifically, I always make sure to say that because I don't know anything about, how death is treated in other cultures, but we just kind of ignore it away. We pretend it's not going to happen. And that really sucks for the family members of people passing. So I kind of think it's a better idea for people to get a hold of like, what do you think is going to happen when you die? And just like be realistic about that. And then, that'll probably help you in those final moments, whenever those are,
It's not easy, even if you know that it's coming. Yeah, I was there when my grandfather passed away, and it tore me up, and I knew it was going to happen any moment. Yeah, I guess something like that must bring comfort to people.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you said though kind of summarizes it all, which is like it's just weird. I mean, we all can talk this big game on this planet, but like we all are gonna be going, and there's people who are gonna miss us and love us, and you're never gonna like share like the perfect timeline with everyone you love. There's gonna always be like new friends that are younger, older friends, and you know how it is because like I'm sure you've lost people along the way, and besides, yeah, exactly, and it's sad, and like. I was telling someone once, like in your 20s, it's hilarious. Everyone's drinking, doing drugs, hanging out. But then in like your 30s, you start to notice when it's not hilarious with certain people. And it's like, and then I've lost a few friends that way and, things like that.
What about your writing?
Writing's definitely my favorite thing I do. And it's definitely the most consistent part of my life. I've written 5 novels. My most recent one just came out. And then in addition to that, I write a weekly philosophical essay. And I've been doing that since 2006. So it's been almost 20 years now. So So they're very different. My fiction novels are like fun, easy to read. They're all very different. And then my nonfiction essays are also easy to read, but I try to be like humorous and good. So like I'm not necessarily a good person, but in the essays I try to be good. Like I try to like promote kindness and stuff. And actually we were talking about how much we both hate politics, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is get people to not see things through a political lens and actually just see things through like the lens of being a human. So it's fun. Like I wrote one about I didn't know I have a daughter, she's 2, and we're potty training her. I didn't know women can't aim their vaginas. Like that was just like brand new to me. Yeah. So I wrote about that one week. And that one got a lot of success. And then, sometimes they're more serious. Like when like stuff broke out in the Middle East, I wrote about like my experience with, I have a son from a previous marriage, and my ex-wife abducted him. And so I talked about how I was also tempted to be vengeful and to take the ultimate revenge and all that. But like, you've got to have a place in your mind where you see like how retaliation begets more retaliation. And so I tried to like, again, like not being political. I'm not taking any side. I'm just taking the side of like, no matter what, if you exact revenge, you can expect revenge if anyone survives. Like, just remember that,
Do you do science fiction?
Actually, that was my first passion. Yeah. So my first novel is called Dysfunction. It's about people trapped in an underground chamber that they built for like global warming storms. And they don't know if anyone's alive above Earth, but they desperately want to get out and they can't open the door. And so the whole novel's about them just being trapped together, and they hate each other. They can't stand each other. They're not like friends. They just all had bought these passes ahead of time. And yeah. And then I've done a couple other sci-fi attempts. I'm writing right now my 7th novel. And it's probably the most sci-fi I'll ever do, which is it's about like human replicants and how you can't tell. So I got this idea because I read about, there's this guy, Ray Kurzweil, who thinks you're going to be able to download your consciousness and put it in like a younger body. First of all, I think that's total BS. I don't think that's going to happen. But I decided to write a novel about what would happen if like someone played God and just started like replicating other people's consciousness and then like messing with people. So I'm finishing that right now. I'm on like my 5th edit of it. But I love sci-fi. It's my favorite subject for sure. Like,
oh man, I was addicted to sci-fi. Any sci-fi movie that came out, I was watching it. And I think that started in '79 when the first Alien movie came out.
Oh, dude, yeah. That's I mean, that movie is, to this day. Also, it's funny. Everyone talks about how like there's no lead women roles, there's no like whatever. That movie features like the most badass lead woman role ever. I mean, it's
hands down. She was the best. I mean, pardon my language, she was a badass.
Totally. Yeah.
And maybe your stuff will be made into a movie one day.
That's actually, it's weird. Television and movies is like my favorite thing. Growing up, that was just like all I consumed. So I actually, in the back of my mind, when I started writing novels, I was kind of like hoping, and I still hope, that like, because it's all it takes is someone in that system to read it and like it, and then they can buy the rights off you, whatever. And that would be very happy for me to see my stuff up on the screen, but not to like be doing it myself. That's way too much work.
Now, what's this about a book indexer?
Yeah, so that's my my side gig, and I love it. I've been doing it since 2016, and I didn't even know what it was until I applied for it, because a friend of a friend like said, "Hey, my company's hiring, and I think you have all the the skills for it." So when you open like a book, especially a nonfiction one, you can go to the back and there's an index in it, right? And it just has like all the stuff. Well, some idiot has to write those, and that idiot is me. I actually get paid to go through a book, and I have a software, but it's not like fancy. It's like, think like mid 80s kind of program, like nothing like modern. And I just enter like the page numbers and the topics, and I can like flip them and stuff. And then it creates this index, and then I edit it. But I love it because it's like I listen to podcasts while I do it. Like I can do anything I want. I can do it on a plane. So it's a really cool job. And there's not a lot of us. There's just like, I work for the biggest company in the world. And I mean, maybe there's like 100 people working for it. And we do almost every like important English language book. So I do a lot of, this is what, when I was talking about how much I hate politics and how it's coming into my job, I index a ton of books for like graduate studies. So I keep getting these like both sides textbooks, just like each of them being like, how can I manipulate young college students? And I'm just like, well, you're not manipulating this 42-year-old, but like, I'll take my paycheck. So,
And when I was in high school, I had a American history teacher who, you could tell he had his way of thinking, but he taught us how to think for ourselves and pick what we want, goes with whatever your values are. I just wish they'd stick to that and quit giving me your opinion. I don't need your opinion.
yeah, I'm so with you, and I don't understand how anyone isn't with us. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me, and I don't see like I just don't see why people wouldn't want to just teach thinking. That's it. Like, teach kids how to think. They'll grow up into thinking adults. Like, clearly, actually, maybe that's the problem with our society. You might have just nailed it.
And I don't think the way I did back then. I mean, my values changed
Yeah.
over the years. So, and I think a lot of people do that, but
Well, and you should be open to it. Like, don't be scared if your values change. Don't be like, you don't. I am so glad I'm not the 18-year-old I was. Thank God. I mean, the world does not need more like permanent 18-year-olds, especially male.
They don't need me at 18 years old anyway.
Yeah. I heard a comedian the other night say that they should just lock up every boy when they turn 11 or 12 until they're like 19. I was like, yeah, I can see that point.
Now I'm thinking maybe after 25 you can let them loose.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like the things we all did too, and just like knowing that they're all doing it now. Like if I see like a 23-year-old do something stupid, I don't get that pissed anymore. I just kind of am like, all right. Like especially if you're at a concert, you see some dumb drunk, young kid.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Real quick, man, we went to a Judas Priest concert, and this was a few months ago. Now, mind you, there was a mix of the young kids and then people my age and older. And I could tell the ones that were close to my age because we were all looking at our watch and thinking, is it time to go to bed yet?
Totally. I wish shows started early, and I hate saying, but I do. I wish they were all started at 4 o'clock. The headliner went on at like 7 max, and like I'm in my car by 9, headed home.
Now, I noticed philosopher was on your list. Were you into philosophy in school, or is that just something picked up later on?
Yeah, definitely in school is when I first got into it. I went to college at University of Pittsburgh, and my freshman year, like they make you take courses, and which actually I thought was cool at the time because I didn't like picking stuff. And I just took this philosophy class, and it really changed my life because speaking of like critical thinking, that's pretty much what it's all about. It's just like, and it still helps me to this day. Like, if you don't have a reason for something, it's probably just emotional. And if it's just emotional, then you should probably check that. Like I have this kind of like checklist thing thanks to philosophy. And it also just it helps me be open-minded because like I'll read new philosophy and stuff. And when I there's a lot of like movements in society, and like they all as you get older, it gets harder to like embrace a new idea just because like you kind of want to rest and you just like things have worked well enough, let's just keep it this way. But there is something to be said for like the philosophy of change and like like understanding that like I don't know if we're evolving like scientifically, like we're gonna have like a third nose or something weird like that, but we are evolving like as a society. Like we're actually like acknowledging like human kindness does matter. There's like free speech, but also like repercussions for being an asshole. Like those are good like philosophical movements. So there's a lot of philosophy in the backdrop of things, and I wish people would replace emotions and gut reactions and especially politics with like philosophy, because if we elected philosophers and not politicians, they would be open-minded like you are. They wouldn't like be beholden to one cause or another. So like I'll get fake political and philosophical at once to make a point. Like instead of just saying like guns are bad, let's ban guns, like debate the philosophy of violence, self-protection, self-defense, and all those things. And when you come out with it, almost every person on earth would say, yeah, just banning guns is a really stupid, not even solution to that. So like that's a better way to talk about things, so yeah, that's like, so I love philosophy.
Well, the hardest job I saw on your list was father, and I'm sure that's that's kind of changed your outlook on life as well.
It really has. And one of the weirdest things about being a dad that I didn't see coming is it actually makes me more compassionate for like really shitty humans who are older, because I just have to assume they didn't have great parents. Like it's not a far leap to see how, like, if someone doesn't have a dad and or a mom who like just gives them like consistency as a kid, and like also lays down the law. Like, discipline is real. It's a real thing. Like, undisciplined people do not do well. Like, maybe if you're undisciplined, you might make it to like 25, 26, but like some of these celebrities, like, they have meltdowns, they self-destruct. Also, like, addiction plagues everyone, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
like discipline in early childhood will help people like you after you have a heart attack being like, okay, guess what? Gotta give this up, like same thing with me. Like, I remember when I was much, much younger, I was getting into like, more of the harder drugs. And I remember like this moment where I was just like, you're like on this road or you're on this road. Like, which one is it, buddy? Like, you can't dabble in this one and stay on this one, So yeah. So, and that also, being a parent, it's terrifying that I have to give my kids freedom. I have to. It's the most valuable thing in the world to me. So I can't just like sit here and nanny them, And so, like, I remember the first time I smoked pot, I was like 13 years old. So guess what? I have a son. He's 8. He's probably 5 years away from trying weed. Like, what am I supposed
Yeah.
to do? What I'm going to do is tell him, don't freak out and don't let your friend drive you the first time you know what I mean? Like, just be smart about it. Call dad if you need something,
Oh my God, it broke my heart when my kids told me when they first tried pot. I think, oh man, I did this to y'all. I know I did.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. What are weird. My parents told me about smoking pot when I was a kid, because they came from an oppressive, family, and like they wanted me to know that like they were cool, and they just kept saying like, wait till you're 18. All that did was tell me like, oh, it's safe. I can do it whenever, So like, I love my parents, but that wasn't exactly the greatest strategy. So yeah, but I don't know,
Mm.
Oh, the other thing that's funny is we're parents and we're podcasting, so there's also that. Like,
Yeah, I tell you one thing that I learned from my kids, and man, I was bad about this when they were younger, is they were listening to their own kind of music and dressing their own way and all that, and it just drove me up the wall. But then one day I was like, my mom didn't like the music I listened to, and she didn't like the way I dressed either, and you have to let them express themselves.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's kind of how I try to look at this entire young generation right now. Because I live in Arizona, and like we, when COVID hit, we shut down briefly and then we reopened. But the one thing I didn't reopen was like people wanting work. So like this, and it has been explained to me, and I've seen the numbers. It's not older people not wanting jobs and not working. There's just like this giant vacuum of young people who normally, like, I was thrilled to have jobs when I was a kid. I didn't like working, but I was thrilled to have income, money, freedom. They're like cool to like sit at home and chat with friends on the internet, which makes sense to me, actually, because like we had to be social. Like, you
Hmm.
couldn't like hang out online, in our generation. So like, that's scary to me, like the labor shortage, because it really is related to like a lot of things like collapsing, in my opinion. So that's scary to me.
Yeah,
Um,
kids, they're on their phones or they're on the computer, and they don't know how to interact in real person. And
no,
it's
it's
our
scary.
fault. It's our
Yeah, it
fault
is.
because we allowed it to happen.
I agree with you. I do. And I think it's lame to not admit that and say that, and also like, so I have like I said, my older son lives in Thailand, so I don't see him a lot. But my younger kids, I have a daughter who's 2, and then I have another kid who's gonna be born in February. So I started with my wife, like every night at dinner, we just put our phones like way the far away. And like, so at the very least, my kids are gonna be trained like no phones at dinner, at meals, like that, because when I go to a restaurant, I see like everyone on their phone. Again, like, I'm not judging them, but it's sad. It like is. I mean, what's the point?
Oh yeah. My wife, no phone when we're having dinner together. You put that thing away, and she doesn't care if you're 12 years old or you're 30 years old. You put that phone away and we're talking.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, if I was at a restaurant and a friend of mine like pulled a phone out, and like I would just, it hasn't happened in years, but I remember the last time it happened, and I just called them out. I was like, "Are you
Hmm.
kidding me?" Like, it's one thing like you have a babysitter and like you need to check in or something, but other than that,
What drives me nuts is when you're at someone's house and everybody in the household are on their phones and they're even across from each other and they won't even talk to each other, but they'll text it in the same freaking room.
It's insane. My friend brought his 2 Gen Z kids over, and I guess I'm talking Gen Z here. I don't know. I try not to, but they did that the whole time. They were like sitting on the couches and like they were watching a football game with us, and they were like texting to each other, and like it was blew my mind. You know, it's my friend's kids. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just sitting there like, why don't you just leave them at home? Throw them in like a cage or something with their stupid phones.
Why do you like to do podcasts? So like go on other people's podcasts.
I love the communication aspect and like meeting people, and then it just like because I've traveled so many places, like I've been to like 30 something countries, I'm just like done with stereotyping, and I think it's like really cool when the first 5 minutes you talk to anyone, you can hold those stereotypes and you can walk away. You give anyone like 20 to 30 minutes of talking time both directions, you're gonna walk away. Well, there's rare exceptions, but you're going to like walk away with like a better feeling in your heart, and you're going to feel better about humanity, and you're going to like feel less tension. You know, I think like if you read, follow, watch the news, whatever the hell the news is anymore, it just bums you out and makes you think that there's like 2 or maybe 3 camps of people. And then like most of us are watching and like, well, I'm not really in like that camp, and I'm not really in that camp. Like I like these things, I like those things, but I'm an individual. And so I think podcasting is really good for that. And then like listening to 2 people who are actually interesting talk to each other is like so fun. You know, I loved radio growing up, loved it. I used to listen to talk radio, and like that kind of died, but thanks to podcasting now it's actually like bigger and better than ever. So I don't know if you
I hear you.
And then the only downside of podcasting, and I'm sure you've had this happen, is every once in a while you'll get a dud in either direction, and it's just weird because you can't like hang up 5 minutes into a pre-planned thing. And
I'm like you. I love meeting people, and everyone has an interesting story. I don't care if you're famous or not. I mean, your neighbor next door has an interesting story to tell. But when you get that guest and you ask them a question and you're expecting them to elaborate on it, and you get maybe that 1 or 2 word answer, and you're just sitting there going, okay, a little more.
Yeah.
Or I get a guest who claims that they were God and all this other stuff. Those blow me away too.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one. I've published them all because I just feel bad. I can't like record something and then never release it. But there was this one where like she was telling me about like the history of like each universe, and I'm like, okay, like I didn't know there was more than one, and it just kept going. And she at one point, because I edit them sometimes, and actually usually she answered one question. It was 17 minutes long, like uninterrupted. Like I didn't, and I just couldn't. I remember at the time, like I don't look at my watch or anything, but I remember like this feels really long. Like, don't you take breaths? Don't you like look at the person to see, I really quickly, I taught ESL for many years, English as a second language. And one of the things you teach people from other cultures when they come to ours is what we call conversation markers, because every culture has a different rule for how you quote unquote interrupt each other, So like in some cultures you put a finger up, like I want to talk next. And so it's like interesting because in America, we do have conversation markers. They're very clear. Everyone knows what they are. And you're supposed to kind of like shut up and pause and give people a chance to like enter and give their piece, And so it's fascinating sometimes when you have a guest who like doesn't get that. And yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I have to say there's been one interview that I did that I had stopped the person, said there's some kind of glitch. I don't know what's going on. And I had to cut it off because it was so far-fetched. And I didn't want to embarrass either one of us by putting this up. I didn't even bother to call them back to say, hey, come back on the show. And I hate doing that, but I mean, geez, man.
I am stealing that idea. That is a great idea. That's a very good idea. That's definitely the most polite way to do it.
You have to be creative, that's for sure. But do you have a website?
Yeah, the mikeyop.com, mikeyOpp.com. And it's actually I love it now because it has like everything. I ended up moving my nonfiction stuff to Substack, which is like this site for writers on the internet. But then I bought the naming rights to like my own URL, and they let you put it on. So instead of like saying go to Substack, find me, I just have my website, and it's MIKEYOPP because I'm Mike Oppenheim. And I don't really remember who did it, but very abruptly in my early 20s, people started calling me Mikey all the time, which had never been my nickname. And the older I get, the more people call it to me. One of my friends says it's because I'm ridiculously like just laughing and like nice, and I don't know, but I don't really care. But anyways, that's like my brand now, is just Mikey Up. But it's cool because it has a tab for like all my stuff, so you can like listen to my music on one. There's videos I've made, stuff like that. So
I will put the links though in the description just to make it easy for folks. But what about social media?
Yeah, I'm on all of them. I think I'm trying to remember. I have different multiple handles now because of the way like stupid things went. But just I guess Facebook, definitely Mike Oppenheim, Instagram, Mikey Up 38, and Twitter, Mikey Up. But if you go to the website I think it has all the social media stuff on it. So
Mike, thank you so much for coming on, man. And I wish you the best and good luck with the kid. And especially the one coming up.
yeah. Amen. Thank you.
And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. And for my regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. And until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network